Welcome to Real Turkey channel. This is Atilla Yesilada saying hi to you from sunny Istanbul. It's a beautiful day. It's the kind of day where you want to take your lover, boyfriend or girlfriend and run to the parks to pick flowers, which I won't be able to do because the COVID-19 outbreak is a real mess here. I mean, according to some reports, there may be as many as 40,000 cases a day, and Istanbul is the new Wuhan of Turkey. Of course, according to official statistics, we only have 2,800 new patients. Now, mind the word, patients. How about cases? Those who are super spreaders but are not in hospitals or in quarantine. Well, we don't know. We don't report that data. It's a state secret. That brings us to the subject of today's matter. As Turkey watchers would have noticed, the mood music has changed completely. A week ago, if you read investment bank reports, they would have told you that the dollar-TL exchange rate pair was destined to overshoot 9. Today, it's less than 8. We have a new economy minister. We have a new governor for our central bank. Mr. Erdogan sounds repentant. And all of these things have created a wave of excitement. I wouldn't call it a tsunami, a typhoon, but it is a wave. It's a small wave. So if you invest in Turkey, and I hope you don't, because this is not investment advice by any means, and if you're foolish enough to get investment advice from me, you deserve to lose all of your money. How far can you trust Mr. Erdogan with your money? I mean, is this guy serious? Is he really changing? Can a leopard change his spots? This is the kind of question I wish to answer because, it's important not only for investors, but for anyone who wishes to do business in Turkey, such as exporters, importers, banks. More importantly, it's a question that needs to be answered by our diplomatic partners, like Russia, United States, EU. Is Erdogan changing? Can we trust him to change? Well, to answer that question, I need to model Mr. Erdogan's behavior. I'm not his mind's keeper, mind you. But from his observed behavior, I'll try to deduce conclusions about how he behaves. For those of you who are economy nerds, I will try to guess his reaction function and how long this repentant Erdogan will last. Over the years, he changed. We all change. That's natural. If I were the same Atilla Yesilada 40 years ago, I would be extremely boring and dysfunctional. And Mr. Erdogan has changed or evolved over his 20-year tenure as the prime politician of Turkey. But certain things hasn't changed. First of all, ideology is paramount for him. He holds views which are not subject to empirical testing. Even burning his hand in fire doesn't change his views on these matters. For instance, he firmly believes that higher interest rates lead to higher inflation. That is turning monetary theory over its head, but that's what he believes. He firmly believes that everyone is out to get him. That is the Uber mind, or the nefarious foreign conspiracy that is bandied in Turkish press every time our financial markets take a hit or the economy goes south. And of course, at those times, all the financial investors who are selling their positions and domestics who are buying foreign currencies are tools for foreign imperialists who are trying to topple Mr. Erdogan. And finally, he believes in something called the high interest rate lobby. Once again, anonymous people, dark shadows operating behind closed doors to keep Turkey's interest rates high. I'm laughing because the people who are most interested in Turkish interest rates, which are fund managers who do business in bonds, would love to see Turkish interest rates go down. As anyone who has ever traded a bond knows, you make money out of bonds, not by holding them to maturity, but by selling them when their price appreciates. And the price of a bond appreciates when interest rates drop. So whether you are a Eurobond investor, Turkish government bond investor, or investor into company bonds, you want lower interest rates. So who the hell wants higher interest rates? Anyhow, nowadays I'm in a very good mood because, look, I mean, we're talking about a government, and I'm not just talking about Mr. Erdogan, but about a government which about a week ago talked about Turkey marching resolutely towards a new age with a dynamic economy and growth returning to 5% next year. We were going to be the star of the region. The entire world would look up to us and emulate us. I'm not kidding you. I may be changing the words, but that was the message given by Mr. Berat Albayrak, the former economy czar. And now, 2 days ago, when Mr. Erdogan addressed his party's parliamentary caucus, he said, well, times are tough. We need to swallow the bitter pill, which is an admission that fiscal belt tightening and monetary tightening is on its way. What happened? Well, the first thing, he removed the central bank governor, Mr. Murat Uysal, for reasons still unknown to anyone. Murat Uysal happened to be a very good friend of Mr. Berat Albayrak. In fact, they went to the same college. So that was the first thing that really offended Mr. Berat Albayrak. I think, I haven't talked to him lately or ever for that matter. I haven't seen the guy, but that's what the press tells me. To add insult to the injury, Mr. Erdogan appointed Nagci Abal, former treasury head and former finance minister, to the post of the central bank governor. As you know, in each cabinet, some people get along very well, some don't, and Mr. Nagci Abal and Mr. Berat Albayrak don't get along at all. And in fact, reports have it that when Mr. Nagci Abal briefed our president, he told him Berat Albayrak wasted $100 billion in FX reserves in a futile effort to defend the exchange rate, which failed, and the money's gone with the wind. Reports have it that Erdogan didn't know about that, and he just went bananas when he heard that. So anyhow, apparently Berat Albayrak asked him to reconsider the appointment of Mr. Nagci Abal to the post of central bank governor. Erdogan wouldn't even answer the phone. Berat Albayrak resigned. And he was replaced by Mr. Lutfi Elvan, formerly a minister in the cabinet, a longtime friend of Mr. Erdogan and AKP functionary, but also a graduate of one of Turkey's most cherished research and planning institutions called Devlet Planlama Teşkilatı, State Planning Agency. And it wasn't only the mind of the Turkish state until it was shut down by Erdogan, but it was also a postgraduate school for ambitious and bright economics, finance, business students, etc., etc. So to me, anyone who has served at state planning organization is A+. You can't go wrong. And Lutfi Elvan apparently has the confidence of Mr. Erdogan, and most importantly, his manners are completely different than Mr. Berat Albayrak. Mr. Lutfi Elvan is a soft-spoken, humble man who tries to reach out to his counterparts, whereas Mr. Berat Albayrak was imperial. Anyhow, these two events by themselves are signs that Erdogan is changing. Because after the firing of Mr. Mehmet Şimşek, and before that, Mr. Ali Babajan, this is the first economy team that can get the job done. So the question is, how much leeway will they have? Thus, we roll back to the beginning of our video. They have as much leeway as Erdogan grants them, and how long will Erdogan let them do what needs to be done? My personal view, having observed Erdogan for 20 years and having lived under him, unfortunately, is that even though ideology is paramount for him, he can be extremely pragmatic when conditions require. And those conditions are, I have no other options. He's a survivalist, not in the sense of, having a bunker in the mountains, but, he knows how to save his political career and his party. So when he understands that reality trumps his ideology, he changes. And we're experiencing one of those periods. Unfortunately, he doesn't learn. The changes are not permanent. As soon as conditions change in a favorable way, he goes back to his old ways. So, how long can we expect Mr. Erdogan to be in his good behavior? I would say at least 3 months, because by January or so, he will notice two things. A, the COVID-19 outbreak is completely out of control. One of the most famous columnists in Turkey, Mr. Fatih Altaylı, in fact warned the people yesterday. He said, you will die on the streets if you ignore social protection measures or health protection measures. So when it gets really bad, Mr. Erdogan will have to make a choice. And if he's going to shut down the economy, then he needs money. That means he needs to spend. There goes fiscal austerity. And since Turkey can't borrow, well, then money must be printed, and there goes monetary tightening. 2, Erdogan has two different clientele. The first pillar of his power are the Islamists and his cronies, and they will remain loyal to him throughout their lives. But the second group are only with Erdogan because he delivers economic benefits. So, and these are divided 50-50. So if AKP has nowadays 35% of the national vote, half of them are Islamists, half of them are those who just vote for Erdogan because he has been good to them, economically speaking. So for Erdogan, growth, GDP growth, is super important. He can't do without it. Even though he now says he can, the dynamics of Turkish politics will not allow. And in 3 months, Turkey will be in a deep recession. You may ask me, how do you know? Well, very simple. I mean, if you tell the central bank governor you are free to raise rates to stop inflation and exchange rate volatility, well, he will. And in Turkey, interest rate changes don't come in 25 or 50 basis points chunks. When central bank raises rates, it will have to raise probably by 400 basis points. That's 400 basis points or 4 percentage points. And that's sort of like hitting the economy with a sledgehammer on the head. There is no way we can evade recession. There are other reasons as well. EU is in recession. Half of our exports go there. So, export growth will stymie. As I've said, as the outbreak rages, even if the government doesn't declare curfews and lockdowns, people do it themselves. If you live in the United States, Germany, France, UK, I'm sure you are familiar with that behavior. And since 65% of our GDP is generated by small service establishments, those store owners in shopping centers, owners of bars, cafes, kiosks, actually a lot of people who depend on footfall and passenger traffic. And if people start locking themselves at home, well, they go bankrupt. Ergo, the recession. I'm sorry. So, by January or so, Mr. Erdogan feels the need to change. He can go two ways. A, he can call early elections, simply because there is no way to produce growth by fiscal and monetary stimulus. They lead to currency volatility and balance of payments crises. Or he will do the right thing, which is to shake hands with Biden and EU and call IMF. What are the likelihoods of either option? I think with 65 to 70% probability, Mr. Erdogan will go the early elections route. Then you will lose money, because early elections means a lot of populist behavior. It could be attack in the West. It could be new credit programs to stimulate the economy in an indirect way. If you believe Erdogan has changed enough that he can call an IMF, and he can at least temporarily forget his problems with Biden and EU and forget about S-400s and the host of problems that sicken the Turkish-EU relationship, well, then you stand to make a lot of money out of Turkey. As I've said, I'm agnostic. Put it this way, none of my colleagues think Erdogan would call in the IMF or give up S-400 anti-missile batteries and shake hands with Biden. I keep an open mind. I still agree with them that it's not the most likely scenario. But having seen how quickly this man can change, how agile he is when he's pressured and when his survival is in jeopardy, I wouldn't count him out. In fact, I would sell Turkish assets, to use the investment terminology, but I would also buy a put option in case I'm wrong, and he calls the IMF. This is the story of Turkey, and I think eventually anyone who deals with Turkey in one way or other has to answer the question I tried to answer. How far can you trust Mr. Erdogan with your money? We will find out in the next 3 months. This has been another broadcast of Real Turkey Channel. We also have a website, a news site called PA no punctuation marks.com. It's all in English, and we try to update it with as many fresh and thought-provoking articles as it is humanly possible, as well as other videos by our channel and by friendly channels who broadcast in English languages. paturkey.com. This is Atilla Yesilada saying goodbye from sunny Istanbul.